Well, it's going to have impact for your community because we've already heard that the head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another thread here because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism, a possible link. He said they're just now beginning to look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
Oh, my goodness. She is. Look at her face. Yo, she is confronting all of this. My goodness, I'm sure 1000% Ilhan regrets all of this. So yeah, this liberal host on Face the Nation is forced to interview Ilhan Omar, and she is losing it inside because she's realizing that Trump is actually right about Ilhan Omar. And you'll know exactly what I mean because now all of a sudden the victim in here is not so much the taxpayers or the kids from the autism fraud or the taxpayers or the billions of dollars gone. It's not the victim there. The victim is her or the Somalians who were caught in this whole mess. So let's actually dig deep. Before I play these clips from what happened, it all started with Scott Bessent, Trump's Treasury Secretary. I hope I said that correctly. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went off on, he went off. He went off. He did exactly what anybody, again, with the cojones to talk about something like this, as far as money goes, as far as fraud goes. And watch what he says here, because this will make her panic. Because she comes next after this. He goes, and then Ilhan sits right after him. Watch this.
The president told you, though, this week to look into Somalis who, quote, ripped off that state for billions of dollars. He said they contribute nothing. What exactly are you investigating?
Well, Margaret, to be clear, the initial fraud that was discovered by the IRS, for which I'm the acting commissioner, is discovered by IRS Criminal Investigations Unit. This was not an endogenous thing that the state of Minnesota decided we had to go in and clean up the mess for them. And this is part of the continued cleanup. And they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system. And that money has gone overseas. And we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that it's terrible. The Representative Omar tried to downplay it. Said, "Oh, it was very It was very tough to know how this money should be used." Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Oh, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent dropping a bomb that there is an ongoing investigation, and the fact that Ilhan Omar says it was so tough to figure out. There was all this fraud going on, to him rings alarm bells. He also decided to say that this isn't an ongoing investigation and we will figure it out. All this money, all this wire transfers, this goes deeper than you can possibly imagine. And it seems that Trump has told him to take the lead in finding all of this. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now we got Ilhan Omar sitting down and she's about to be pressed on all of this. And watch her reaction, because she didn't expect Margaret from CBS to literally know the facts behind these questions that she's asking, unlike every other liberal reporter. Take a listen.
And we're joined now by Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Margaret.
We have a lot to get to with you, but I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Ag asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87...
Look, CBS, even she is reading this information, and she even herself is like, whoa, you telling me you didn't know about this? You telling... She is repeating that. The biggest fraud in COVID, during COVID. Now, there was a lot of fraud happening at that time, and she is like reading it over, and like she can't even believe it.
People charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because
Oh no, she's becoming the victim. She's the victim.
has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, though, that there was a failure by the Democratic state government to police itself? This is a brazen, fraudulent activity here.
Yeah.
Oh, she's cooking. So she flips it back on her because, again, she is trying to be the victim here. And the craziest part about it is she says, well, we're mad about it and we could have benefited from it. We could have been the one scamming, but we didn't, though. What? But here's Margaret again. She's fishing because she knows that that's not a real answer. That's just you victimizing yourself and saying that you just didn't reap the benefits of it. You probably, like, what does that even mean? So here we go.
To police itself. This is a brazen, fraudulent activity here.
Look at brazen. This is crazy. Ilhan, how did you not know?
Yeah, and that is what I alluded to in my letter that I'd sent to the Secretary of Ag, was to see where things were going wrong. How can this amount of money disappear fraudulently without there being alarms being set off? And it is something that, we have to continue to investigate. We have to continue to ask those questions.
Because, as you know, one of the initial defenses by the organization at the heart of the fraud, Feeding Our Future, was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was all about negligence, or that it was like political fear of alienating the Somali community?
Yo, she's cooking right now. Look at the questions that she's asked. She is pushing back. She is pushing back on Ilhan. Oh,
Our Future was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was all about negligence, or that it was like political fear of alienating the Somali community?
So you have to remember that the woman who led the program is a Caucasian woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her way of making sure that this would continue to happen by using whatever rhetoric that was available to her. We do know that when the money was stopped, they did sue. The AG, Attorney General Keith Ellison, defended the department in that lawsuit. It was a judge that said it should continue, that money should continue to go out. And so this wasn't something that people were not looking at. There was always those alarms, and we will continue to understand where things might have gone wrong as these investigations continue and as these fraudsters are prosecuted and sent to jail.
Well, it's going to have impact for your community, because we've already heard that the head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another thread here, because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism, a possible link. He said they're just now beginning to...
oh my goodness. She is, look at her face. Yo, she is confronting all of this. My goodness, I'm sure 1000% Ilhan she regrets all of this. She regrets coming on the show 1000%.
I'm pretty confident at the moment because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in that the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges. And so I do know that for many years, this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations. But if that is the case, if money from US tax dollars is being sent to help with terrorism in Somalia, we want to know.
Yeah.
And we want those people prosecuted. And we want to make sure that that doesn't ever happen again.
So there are 80,000 people of Somali descent in your state, but the president has been very focused, not just on them, but on you.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I want to jump here because I think this interview has gotten out of hand for Ilhan Omar. This has been a lot of L's, right? You want to go point by point when she is asked. First of all, Ilhan also says, right, before I get to all those other points, she says that there were no alarm bells. And then she says that there were some alarm bells that she did or people were noticing. But then she also said that people didn't notice. So like, what's the real story here? Especially from the AG, Keith Ellison. Like what this feels like, people trying to run cover and go to these liberal outlets. And even these liberal outlets are like, yeah, this is kind of bad, right? Like there's only 80,000, but yet all but 2 or 3 are not Somalian, that there's something going on. There's a deeper connection. Then people are getting arrested that also took pictures with you and probably donated to you. So I think this is crazy. And then the whole like trying to blame now the FBI, like the FBI failed. Well, that was a Democrat FBI, right? During that time. Now that there's an investigation, we're probably going to find it out, right? If this actually links to Al-Shabaab in Somalia. So this thing is getting pretty crazy. It's getting pretty crazy. But here we go. Here's one of the most evil parts about this whole thing that has the internet on an uproar is what she said about Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller responded, and I think Katie Miller, his wife, responded that there is some type of lawsuit that could allegedly take place here for what she said about, because this is not the first time people have said it about Stephen Miller. Take a listen.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
Wow. So she is literally defaming Stephen Miller as a Nazi. Do people that call Stephen Miller a Nazi this is a real question. I don't know if they know. They know that he's Jewish. He's Jewish. Like there are legitimate people that hate him because he is Jewish, but yet they're saying that he's the Nazi. Yeah, this is pretty insane stuff. But apparently, what he said, according to her, is again, Nazi stuff. So you guys let me know what you think about that. What do you think about what his point was on that? I heard Elon Musk be called the same thing for saying that we should not be importing societies that cannot align themselves with this. I just think this is all a bad look. Like, let's have an honest conversation. Like, this is where it gets crazy, right? Because one, as a Christian, like, you don't want to be that guy that's like, and I will hope that white conservatives get like that too. You don't want to be that guy that's like, yo, get out. Like, you want to be a complete race isolationist or like one of these race people, like, because I think it's all full of rage bait. When you go meet people, whoever they are, wherever they are, you meet them, you get along with them, you both have Christ in common. But the problem here is this: you come to this country, right? When you come to the United States, and like this happens, or when the Venezuelans were coming in and like they were like the Tren de Aragua gang members, like when they were running wild, repping that they were from Venezuela, they were imported, and they started committing crimes, and like they started getting gang affiliated and involved, started going through gang wars in Chicago and then in New York City. Like when stuff like that happens, like it's hard to argue for it. It really is. It really, as a normal person that has grown up his entire life in the United States of America, if I am not afforded the right to speak on that because you think that I don't have the right to speak on this, then I think that's where the disconnect between me and you probably comes in. Because you are literally, you have 80,000 Somalians, and then all of a sudden, like $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, how much money was gone? Like, that is bad. Does not make you look good at all. It does not make the people that came from across the border or came seeking refuge. It just does not do any good, man. And that sucks. It really does suck. It does suck, man. Because no one wants to like really sit here. At least I don't want to be sitting here talking about a group of people or people at all. But these are undeniable facts. And the fact is that there is some type of like war online that has been already happening, where a lot of people have been talking about things like this. Like a lot of people that have come through the border have been unvetted. We don't know who's here. So Trump doing what he's doing, a lot of people who are immigrants may feel some way. A lot of people who are immigrants may also feel like, you know what, that is the safest thing to do because we come from those countries. You've never been there, so you having an opinion doesn't matter. So yeah, that's my little rant. Let me know what you guys think. Comment down below, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you guys on the next one.